Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got James Barry, and we're going to talk about James's business because everybody in your company has a personal brand, or you're working towards. Everybody's going to have a personal brand.
We are working towards it, Tim. That is correct. It was an initiative started about 2 months ago. The company itself is Beacon Talent. We're about a 3-year-old talent consultancy. We help VC-backed startups hire, and yeah, we've been growing really quickly right now. And happy to get more into it over the course of this conversation. But yeah,
Cool.
Personal branding is a big focus for us.
So before we dive into it, James, where can people find you?
LinkedIn is the best place. I am still very early on building my own personal brand, putting content out there, trying to determine who I'm going to be and what I want to say.
You're very modest.
LinkedIn is my chosen platform so far. Maybe you'll be able to find me somewhere else later on, but LinkedIn for now is the chosen platform.
And I've been watching from afar, and you're getting a lot of success there, James.
I'm trying. I'm trying. There's a lot of things that go into it, though.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So what is it that at Beacon there that you've just to set that you're a young company yourself. You've got 25 people, and so you obviously got a number of competitors who've probably got more resources than you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And so you need to find a way of basically punching above your weight. So is this the personal brand initiative part of that, or is it something else?
Yeah, the personal brand initiative, I guess there's multiple parts when it comes to a personal brand. So if you think about it, nobody's going to build a personal brand for a company. They're going to build it for themselves. It's in the name.
Yeah.
It's personal.
And I think that's really important, James, isn't it? Which is the fact that it's got to appeal to, why would I want to do that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like everybody's doing it in their free time. Nobody gets compensated for building a personal brand. And when I think about building a personal brand for myself, there's a few things. There's the benefits the company gets, and then there's the benefits that I get. The benefits the company gets is number one, obviously, inbound leads. People coming to me, asking me about what I do, and why I have conversations. That's like the clear, linking personal brand to revenue. And then number two is really just, I would say, establishing credibility in a space where there's a lot of people reaching out cold, trying to start conversations. And you're only going to talk to people if you have a sense of who they are, what they're like, what they care about, and just having them be like a real person. Like if I don't know who they are and they reach out to me, I'm probably not going to talk to them. But if I've seen their content before, engage with them, talk to them, it really increases the chance that we're going to have a conversation. So that's kind of the two parts. It's getting leads and increasing the credibility of everybody. And just to really dig into number two as well, we are a services organization. What we sell is our employees' time and expertise. So if you want to think about adding value to that versus say like a software company where really the product is what they sell, because we're selling our employees' time and expertise, the more credibility that we can give them, the more we're going to be able to grow the company. And really, I would say, help our clients understand that we are, I hate using the term thought leaders, but more just that we know what we're talking about and we think about it a
lot. And I think and with these, so it's all so the initiative is all for all 25 employees. So it's not that they're in sales or in marketing or in a traditional customer facing role. This is where you're seeing this across the board.
Yeah. And I'm going to be very honest with you. It's hard to get people to focus on it when there are other priorities at stake.
Yep.
We have been growing very quickly. We have clients that we serve, and our clients' needs always come first above everything else. That said, it's more the senior managers at the company that are pushing towards this, and we're starting to spin up kind of the marketing arm and get more into that later. But personal branding is a very core part of that. And so, for example, we are hosting a workshop tomorrow, and I've been promoting it through LinkedIn via my own personal brand. And it's just one of those other avenues where, yeah, you can post on a company page, you have an email list, but that's not really what people do these days. Or that's not, let me rephrase that. That's not where people are spending their time.
Yeah.
If I sign up for something, I sign up because somebody who I respect and I know is speaking at it, and I want to hear what they have to say, not because I'm part of an email list.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you said something when we met to prep this, which was that um, the best companies out there are letting the people, their employees, speak for them, and they're empowering these people. People don't believe in a big corporate message.
No, they don't. I mean, I think it's my favorite example of like big corporate messages. People just see through it. I think you had during the Pride Month, a lot of corporations would change their logos to be rainbow, except in nationalities where being gay was not accepted, and you could just see that
Yes.
on Twitter. And it was one of those things where it's like I think I can't find a clear description of being two-faced than doing that, like trying to cater to your audience. And everybody can see these online brands, and it's completely see-through. And that's why a lot of people, they don't buy from corporations, at least for the businesses that we work with or what we sell specifically. They buy from people.
Yeah, and I think that's what, certainly in business to business, you generally know the name of the salesperson. So
Always.
if you go and buy a pair of shoes, you probably don't know the name of the person. With B2B, it's a considered purchase. If you're spending, if you're looking at your organization, you're not going to just sit there and sign a purchase order. You're going to go through some sort of the deliberation in terms of saying, is this company, does it have a culture fit? Are these people the right people? And I talk to a lot of people who work for big companies and say, we can't get people to go and work for us, even though we're doing all the things around diversity and inclusion and having training and stuff like that. And I say, so do you tell the market? Oh, yeah, we don't tell the market. Why don't you tell the market about your culture?
Well, it's less about telling the market. It's more about having your employees go out and represent it for you.
Yes. And live it.
Yeah, and live it. You can't just be like, oh, we have an inclusive culture. Like there's this one person that I'm a very big fan of on LinkedIn. His name's Garrison Gibbs, and he's the head of people at, I forget the company he's at, but he shares his own story of the adversity he's been through. And you can tell that because he works for companies that allow him to share these very personal stories, it's one of those things where that because he's the head of people and he's sharing these stories.
And what's his name?
Company, Garrison Gibbs.
So here we are. You know his name, but you don't know the company he works for.
He changed companies like 3 to 4 months ago.
That's the thing. We know online, we know and we love, and we ultimately could actually, there's always going to be people you go, if that person's put out a piece of content, I'm gonna read it, or I'm gonna watch it, or whatever. I mean, for me, if James Barry comes past in the feed, I stop. Yeah. I stop scrolling because I know that James Barry is a person that I was going to say generally. I've never seen you put out a post that didn't actually add value to me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's my one rule is that if I'm creating content, I want to at least add value to one person. And so, for example, like I posted today, I could have been like, hey, we're running a workshop, come learn about hiring. But like, that's frankly boring. And I'd be embarrassed to put something out like that. So I put out a lesson.
But the thing is, James, is that because you're posting other stuff about you and your journey and things like that, the fact that, you did a startup and you failed. Mm-hmm. Because of that, I give you permission to tell me about what you're doing. So, it's most people, it's like, it's just brochures. And you go scroll. Oh, James has got a webinar on. Okay. I'm not particularly interested in it, but I stopped scrolling because it was James.
Yeah. I mean, that is a big part of it. And again, it's always about the person that you want to connect with on a personal level. And you talked about hiring for a second. And, I talked about the benefits of building a personal brand for the company. But one of the biggest benefits is that people know who you are if you have a personal brand. So instead of having to actually go out and search for jobs, if you do it correctly, people are going to come into you and try and get you and ask you to apply to their jobs. And the same thing goes with getting people to come to your company. If people like me and people know who I am, and they're like, wow, James is hiring, I would really like to work with James. Like that is another benefit. It's another two-way street. And for a lot of companies, the biggest benefit a personal brand will give is reducing their hiring costs because people are going to know who they are.
Yes. And hiring costs are big because you're paying advertising and you're paying recruitment fees. And if you can get people to actually say, do I actually fancy working for James's company? He's got some great content. I'll check them out. They look like great place to work for. That can actually reduce a lot of spend.
Oh, it can reduce a ton of spend. I mean, there's so many things. It's more just about being where everybody is and having conversations where people are having conversations. I mean, there's recruitment, and there's also marketing, there's sales, like personal brands. Again, it touches every single part of the business. And one thing that you're talking about buying shoes. You don't really have a personal connection with a company. But even the best companies today, using Tesla as like a very well worn example, just past $1 trillion market cap. Elon Musk is one of the biggest pioneers in building personal brands. When you think about Tesla, you think about Elon Musk, and it's 1-to-1. I think he has like 50, 60 million Twitter followers. And just the ability to capture the attention of the market and of millions and millions of eyeballs has allowed him to stay in the spotlight. I can't even put a number on how much free marketing he has gotten.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Even
it's in the billions of marketing. Like, it seriously is. He's got billions of free marketing.
So while we're talking about recruitment, I was going to come to this at the end, but let's pick on that now. So you actually are looking for particular things. If you were going to recruit a salesperson into your team, what would you be looking for? That I'll put that open question to you.
Yeah. So I mean, to give this a caveat, our sales approach is not like your typical company has a salesperson that's doing a lot of activities, a lot of cold calls, a lot of outreach. And really what we're building at Beacon, it's not sales 2.0, but it's a very, I would say, I'm not gonna use the word clever because I haven't completed it yet, but my goal is to merge marketing and sales and really have people who are going out and selling themselves be very in tune with marketing. And at the end of the day, the goal is to drive leads towards us. We don't want to go out and coerce people to having meetings with us, to talking to us and convince them to do business with us. That's not the way we're going to organically grow. We want to have our salespeople, yes, talking to people and spreading the word about what we're doing, but also really just, again, being where people are having conversations and hopping on podcasts, talking to people like you right now. And that's the big difference, I would say, when it comes to our business model. We are a bootstrap company, so we are not held to any specific growth targets. A lot of VC-backed companies have SDR teams, they have account executive teams, because they need to hit quarter-over-quarter revenue targets. And the best way to do that is to just bash the sales button and go, say, make $100 per day, or like send out 200 cold emails per day. And while we could do that, that's not the way that we're going to grow for the long term. And this gets more into a conversation of, are you investing in marketing or are you investing in sales?
Yeah. So some of the things that you talked about was in the you saw they said there was 4 things that you were looking for in terms of salespeople, and I've written down the first word is credibility. The second is an ability to be creative. The third thing is an ability to share, and the fourth thing is an ability to tell stories.
Yeah, that sound. I mean, there's also tenacity and determination there, and empathy. There's a lot of things that you look for in salespeople, but if you're looking for somebody who's going to walk the fine line of both being a salesperson while also being, I would say, a storyteller, and somebody who is both elevating their personal brand while elevating the company's brand, you want somebody who's going to be creative and also fearless, like putting content out there and telling your story and being able to tell it in an engaging way is a very hard skill to develop. And the reason is, when you do it the first 100 times, you're probably going to do it poorly, and people aren't going to engage with you, and that's going to hurt. And so whenever I talk to people about creating content, I tell them that their goal should be to get to a certain number of things. So say like 100 posts to start out with, before you start thinking about engagement, before you start thinking about, am I really adding value? Obviously you should be adding value, but you know from your own work that creating content itself can be hard, especially when it doesn't resonate and you like, it's something personal that you put out there. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with doing it.
Yes, I think that that people generally are uncomfortable, but that's partly because that they've been brainwashed into thinking that LinkedIn is this professional networking. So what we have to do is bore people with brochures and brochureware. Whereas if you actually ask people why they come to LinkedIn, and the research shows they come to LinkedIn to be social.
Yeah.
And what we've done is that we've done research in terms of what content works, and humanized content works by far and wide works better than anything else.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's this, I personally hate the term, but it's like education and entertainment, like edutainment. And it's like, you want to be educational while you also want to be entertaining. And like the best way to do that is really just by telling personal stories of lessons that you've learned and lives that you have lived. That's my recommendation to everybody is like, take what you're learning on a day-to-day basis and just write about it, or things that you've learned like a few years ago. It's unique to you and it's your own personal story. And people want to hear that. People want to hear other people's stories and where they came from.
And I think people learn from that. You know, it's one of those things where what you want to do is that you're interested in other people, therefore you want to hear about what they've done. And you know, we've all seen people go, you know, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I run a marathon, and then I get to the office, and you know, and I work 26 hours a day and stuff like that. And none of that is believable.
No, I mean, there are people that do that, and
but it's an outlier.
own.
But most people are like, you know, most people are like us. Well, you know, which is, you know, we may work hard, but at the end of the day, you know, we're not killing ourselves by working hard. And the thing about being a human is that you're fallible, which is you make mistakes. And one of the things that if you're going to learn by those mistakes is telling other people so they don't make them as well.
Exactly. I've made so many mistakes. I mean, I'm not going to say my first 5 years of my career were a mistake. Like I learned a lot of lessons from them. But again, my goal when I share content is to help one person every time. And if I can share my story with somebody and save them a year, save them 2 years, help them make a decision that's going to make them better off for the long term, then that is a big win in my book. And I think that is where the most valuable content comes from.
So one of the things you also said is this difference that personal branding is not social selling.
No, it is not. Personal branding is marketing. It's brand building, and it is going out into the world and it's telling people what you care about and your story. If you think it's going to immediately turn into sales, which some people say it does not. I had a viral post this summer. It was about recruiting. It was about what I do. It got over 100,000 views, and not a single sale came from it. And that's fine. I just hate when people are like, hey, if you build a personal brand, you'll get a ton of inbound leads, because like that's not true. Like that is just not true. Social selling is actually going out to people and engaging them in conversation. And there are certain ways to do that. But if you think that just building your personal brand, you are going to magically get jobs, get deals, get leads, that's not true. It just creates other avenues to do that in a way that is not as, I would say, cold and blunt as some current sales programs use.
So how are you going out and having conversations with people on social then?
Whenever I find something interesting, I just reach out to somebody. I'm like, hey, would you like to talk? That's how we got connected here. That's how most of my conversations happen. And I try and talk to people where we're philosophically aligned, where we both believe in the same thing. I like being challenged. I like when people, you know, teach me new things. But there's, you know, a portion of people out there where they're very much only in it for themselves, and they'll connect with you and they'll pitch you on the business. And you're like, great, this was a sales meeting I didn't sign up for. But I talked to, for example, a brand consultant yesterday. We talked for 25 minutes. She was selling what I need. We were really aligned in terms of how we think about branding, and, you know, hopefully we get to work together. But it was just like, you know, somebody else connected us and they're like, you should talk. And that is the way that I personally like to buy services, buy software. And I think it's the way a lot of people go out and buy it. They buy it through their network, and they buy it from people that they trust.
Yeah. And they be, you know, whether it's a referral or whether it's through someone your trusted network, people will always generally buy from people they know and trust.
Oh, always. And that is one of the, I think, catch-22s of current sales programs, is you need to figure out how to create that trust. But a lot of current modern sales techniques don't give you the tools that you need to do that.
So you also talked about trying to build deal flows into using social selling and creating conversations. Have you cracked that nut yet?
Not yet. And I mean, right now, the majority of our deals, I would say, come through referrals or just people that we've had conversations with, and we've continued to have conversations with them. And the thing is, our service, like everybody else's, like everybody's product, it's unique, and the way that people buy it is unique. And so we're still figuring out what works best for us. But we've noticed that if people work with our competitors, they will usually come back to us after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, because they're like, well, we tried working with that model and it didn't work out very well. So now we want to try your model. And that's very common for us. And also it's common to get referrals because people, that's another thing. You think about engaging a referral network. The best way to engage a referral network is just by staying top of mind with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like I would way rather write a really great engaging post that 100,000 people could view than reach out to every single one of my friends and try and talk to them one-on-one. That is just not a scalable way of doing things.
But using LinkedIn, you're able to stay top of mind for at scale. I mean,
Yeah.
the classic thing always with clients is that you want to remember them, and because if they're sitting in a meeting, you want them to buy something from you, but also what you want them to do is to refer you on. And the best way to do that always is to be on social because they can see you. You know, scroll. There's James. Scroll. There's James.
Of course. And I think one of the big things that people struggle with, or at least I personally struggled with, is like as salespeople, you are told that you need to constantly be checking in, constantly following up, and staying top of mind. But you're also told you need to add value. And like doing both of those things while also staying efficient at your job is so incredibly hard. I know I can't do it. And I bet you a lot of other people out there can't do it. And one of the things that's valuable is just sharing your story. People still really value that. I have literally had people tell me who are qualified leads being like, hey, thank you for sharing that. I really enjoyed it. One of them was like a post about me traveling to like the Grand Canyon after I quit my job and did a road trip. And that has nothing to do with what I sell, but it has everything to do with personal relationships. And I think that is one of the things where not only salespeople, but businesses in general are going to become more and more successful as they embrace that. And I would say there is a fine line though. And this is kind of a completely separate topic that we don't have enough time for, but some people would like to get extremely personal. For me, I like to get personal, but keep it within the confines of work. Like I do a lot of stuff outside of work, but you're never going to see me sharing personal stories about like the hike I went on this past weekend or anything like that. It just doesn't have anything to do with my job or my professional sphere. So I actually don't find a lot of value in sharing.
James, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that and talking about personal brands and social selling and stuff. I really appreciate it. It was awesome. Thank you. Where can people remind people where they can find you?
Just search for me on LinkedIn. If you type James Barry, Barry, not EE, and Beacon Talent, I will come up in the search bar. And feel free to connect with me, reach out to me. Obviously, I love talking about this topic. And Tim, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Great to see you, James. Thank you for coming on and talking to us and sharing your insight.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.